it's a process, and there's no shortcut. It's just, human beings getting to know one another and figuring out if A, they can trust each other, and B, if they can work together, right?
Welcome to The Real Deal, a commercial real estate investing podcast. I'm your host, Aman Shahi. There's a ton going on in the world right now, and much of it impacts real estate investors. The Real Deal podcast will take a look at what's happening and how it influences you as a real estate investor. Each episode is a 20-minute segment dedicated to distilling the day's most important news, so you can stay up to date on what's going on in the world and how it might affect the commercial real estate market.
Welcome everybody to another show of Real Deal Podcast. Today we have very special guest, a really seasoned investor. His name is Ed Mathews. Hey Ed, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Aman. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, my friend. Life is good. It's Friday afternoon, so I'm a happy guy.
There you go. So Ed, give us your 30-second introduction, who you are.
Yeah, so I'm the founder and president of Clark Street Capital. We are a value-add syndicator and developer here in Connecticut. We invest in Connecticut, and we're also expanding into the Sun Belt. And I'm also the host of the Real Estate Underground podcast. So,
can you tell us how did you get into real estate? Can you share your story?
Sure. So I spent about 24, almost 25 years working for Silicon Valley companies and startups, and most of them you've never heard of. But so I was traveling quite a bit, and in fact, I read in 2008 I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that kind of crystallized for me where I wanted to take my career, and that meant that at some point I was going to have to leave Silicon Valley, which was fine. Problem was I actually needed the income, so. Over the course of from 2011, which is when we finally invested and bought our first place on Clark Street in Connecticut, East Hartford, Connecticut. Then, we would flip a couple houses, and I'd take the capital and buy another multi, and flip a couple houses and buy a multi, and so on. And over the course of 7, almost 8 years, the income from our portfolio pretty much came, in line with what I was making at my day job. And, in parallel to that, I have two daughters and a wife, and they, I love them all. And, thank God they all still love me, which is a good thing. But the problem was that I was traveling 150 to 200 nights a year. And so, my wife and I made the decision that we were, I was going to take a step back from corporate life and give real estate a chance. And so I went full time in February of 2018 and haven't looked back since.
Nice, sure. And how's the life after that? Spending more time with your family?
Well, it's wonderful because, right now you and I are recording on a Friday afternoon. My daughter, Maggie, is a softball player. And so about half an hour after we wrap up today, I'm going to hop in the car and go watch her play in a state tournament, which I'm excited about. And I don't have to put a phone call into anybody to ask them if it's okay if I leave a little early today. Right. So, time freedom has been a huge win. And, the fact is that I've been able to focus on one thing and do it well. So, we've benefited in terms of wealth growth as well.
And what does financial freedom mean to you?
Time. It
with
does.
the family.
Yeah. So, the fact is that I learned very early on. I had some great, amazing managers and mentors. And, the thing that a lot of them always counseled me to do is protect my calendar, protect my time, right? Because, it's the one thing you can't get back. I can go make more money. But you can't, take back half an hour that you spent doing something you shouldn't have been doing. Right. And so that's what financial, that's what freedom means to me, is the ability to live intentionally on my own terms.
Yeah. And can you tell us how did you balance your corporate job and real estate investment at the same time when you were working for a corporate job? How did you balance?
Sometimes I did, and a lot of times I didn't. Right? It's really hard because a lot of cases I was managing projects from a hotel room or a conference room somewhere else in the world, and so uh, that balance was difficult sometimes. And the fact is that I wanted to obviously excel at my day job, which good fortune, I worked with really good people, and we were able to have a lot of success. But you've got a responsibility to your employer, and and I also have a responsibility to my family to be able to continue to grow run those projects and grow the portfolio. So one of the things that I had to ultimately do was let go of day-to-day management, from a construction or a rehab perspective on the properties, and then, find a really good general contractor, actually two general contractors, and get out of their way and let them do what they do, and be very deliberate in terms of setting expectations and timelines and budgets. But other than that, relying on their expertise and their teams to get the jobs done. And that's when I kind of found balance. That made life a lot easier.
And what were the other challenges you were facing in the time management while working corporate job and the real estate investment?
Well, I think my biggest problem is that I'm human and I require sleep, right? So, 6 to 8 hours a day, I actually have to close my eyes and regenerate. And so, part of it was I got very good at, from 5 a.m. to 7:30 or so, to getting kind of setting the day up and making sure that I had addressed any open questions or handled any issues, so that when I walked into the office, whether virtually or physically, 7:30, 8 o'clock, 8:30, somewhere in there, that I was present and that I was focused on the day job. And then, and then I'd slip away for a quick bite to eat at lunchtime and make a couple phone calls and make sure things were going as well as they possibly could. And, at the end of the day, then it was, head back to the house, head back to the hotel, wherever, to kind of finish the side hustle and, work on that and basically set up the next day and address any issues that happened during, the present day. So it was a lot. It was a lot because I was working, 60, 70, 80 hours a week on the day job. And then, probably another, I'm going to guess 15 to 20 hours on the real estate stuff. So it's a good thing I loved it.
You talk about sleep. Somebody told Einstein that sleep is very important, and that guy was sleeping 10 hours a day, and he was
Yeah.
very productive.
I'm sure he was. Yeah. I don't know that I've ever tried to sleep 10 hours. I think probably in college maybe, but not
Yeah,
recently.
I don't think so. Now we can do it because we have a lot of stuff to do, and we need more time, and we are like we only have 24 hours a day. And
Exactly.
yeah, and how do you find the properties? Like, how do you create the deal flow that to find and underwrite the properties for that?
Yeah, great question. So it's a lot of different things, right? We rely heavily on kind of three constituencies. One is wholesalers. So I'm always, reaching out to wholesalers who tend to be productive and, seeing what they're seeing out there and, hopefully trying to stay top of mind when they send out their, opportunities. We do the same thing with brokers and agents. And then the third is the building owners themselves. So with wholesalers and brokers, agents, that's digital marketing mostly. So that's email, text, phone calls. I'm buying them coffee or catching up with them for lunch just to continue to create and build those relationships. And then, as far as building owners go, it's mostly direct mail and digital marketing. So email predominantly. And then, obviously we're very active on social media, in particular, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram and YouTube.
And how do you find the name of the building owners? Mostly they have the under LLCs. And doesn't the LLCs cover everything, give you 100% privacy in some states?
Some states, yeah, like Wyoming, Nevada, but I live in Connecticut, and so Connecticut's a transparent state, and so basically what I do is I use a tool called CoStar, and we identify based on our very specific criteria exactly what business buildings we're after. And in fact, the number here in Connecticut is 1,208 buildings. I know exactly which buildings we want to buy someday, and so we're able to identify. In a lot of cases, it's LLCs, and then we have to do some homework. But hopping on the Secretary of State's site, you can usually identify the principles of an LLC if it was established here in Connecticut. Most of them were, so that becomes a little bit a little bit easier to figure out.
And what other factors do you consider when you underwrite any deal that you get from the wholesaler and you get from brokers or agent or anybody else?
So we're a cash flow player, and so I care about appreciation, but I don't count on it. And so the whole idea is we need to see a cash on cash return of after we buy it, we make it clean and safe, we upgrade it. We need to see a probably a minimum 12% return. And so that's where we start is okay, from a cash flow perspective, what exactly would we have to do in order to achieve cash flow that would make sense to invest in this building? The other part of it is that I'm not. We're not one of those players that will buy at a 4 or 5 cap, mainly because it doesn't make financial sense for us, right? It puts too much pressure on our capital position, and it's a time like now where there is, depending on who you talk to, we're in the middle of a recession or we're about to dip into one. Either way, having a cash position is important, and the fact is that the buying at a compressed cap rate, the threes, fours, fives, puts a lot of pressure on your financial operations. So we tend to focus on when we buy a building, we're looking for it to cash flow pretty darn quick. And then we grow that cash flow over time by, obviously upgrading the amenities and upgrading the units and common areas, and then slowly raising rents, but also doing a much better job of managing the properties themselves. So we're lowering the expense envelope also.
Got it. Got it. And you said something about your criteria. What is your investment criteria? Like how many units, class A, B, or C, and what other criteria do you like keep that in mind when you see, I want to buy this property?
So at the building level, we tend to focus on some pretty basic stuff, right? Unit count is 10 to 50 units. I'm looking for economic occupancy of at least 65%. So that means, 6.5 out of 10 units are actually paying the bills. With regard to the other 35%, they're either vacant or they're problem tenants. And then obviously we build a plan around, okay, how are we going to right that ship? I'm looking for, as a former flipper, right? So I'm looking for construction things, right? And so rehab opportunities. So I'm looking at the roof, the windows, the exterior envelope, the units, the apartment units themselves, the mechanical, HVAC, plumbing, electrical. I pay attention to all that. But as far as the financial piece of it, I really need to understand just a few things. So kind of taking it above just the building, right? I'm looking at the neighborhood. I'm looking at crime. I'm looking at, population trends for that town or city. Is it growing? Is it shrinking? As far as the, the job situation, what's the job growth situation? Is it growing? Is it stable? Is it declining? Where is it relative to the rest of the geographic area? Is it, in line with, is it outperforming or is it underperforming? And if so, why? We look at amenities within the neighborhood. If there's a Dunkin' or a Starbucks nearby, that certainly makes it a lot easier. Most of the properties that we buy are typically C minus C properties, and our objective is to turn it into a C to C plus, or maybe even, depending on the location, B minus, and and then hold them forever. So it's a lot of different moving parts, but we've got a pretty well defined process to bring it in, understand it very quickly, and then make a decision on whether or not we're going to offer.
You mentioned something about Starbucks or Dunkin'. Does that affect your investment decision when you see, that's the good sign? There's a Starbucks or Dunkin' over there in the neighborhood. Does that affect your investment decision?
It helps because it's a little bit of a trick in that I know that they've done market research and they're looking at the similar things that I'm looking at because we're chasing the same human being. And so, a lot of our buildings are near universities and schools here in Connecticut. And so, we're renting to students, occasionally professors, grad students, folks that work at the universities, and the ones outside of university areas. Most of the time, we're renting to either kids who just got out of high school and have gotten their first job and are starting to on their path to adulting, and eventually what happens is they find a significant other, and then either they move to one of our larger apartments or they move out and go buy a house or whatever. But so typically, while it ranges in terms of the people and where they come from in life, that it ranges in our portfolio. It ranges from working class, good hardworking people that are they'll pour your coffee at the diner in the morning. They'll crank a wrench to fix your car. They'll cash you out at Walmart or Target. They probably have multiple jobs, all the way up through a recent college grad who's just starting out and looking to figure out how to be an adult.
So you find your target audience is the students.
So it's a big chunk, yeah, for sure. Although I wouldn't characterize us as a student housing player. We don't buy buildings explicitly to rent to students. But if there's a student population and some of them would like to live in our buildings and they're willing to pay our rent and be good residents, then yeah, happy to do it.
But it helps. Like students always looking for a place to live around the universities. So you can easily see that somebody's gonna there come and see the building. Maybe they rent.
Yeah, I mean, we just bought a building in Willimantic last December. Small building. It's 8 units, and half the building was professors. A couple of the units were are grad students, and then a couple of other of the units are folks that live in town and work in town. So.
That's great. And let's talk about the capital raise. Can you share us your first capital raise? How was that?
So outside of friends and family, or friends and family?
How about both?
Okay. So when I left my corporate job, all my friends in Silicon Valley are like, hey, real estate, it's hot. We see bigger pockets too. We'd like to invest with you. And I said, hang on. I need some time to turn what really was a side hustle into an actual business. And so, we spent the better part of 18 months, almost 2 years, working through and getting that done. At that time, I was using my own money to acquire properties. As I realized that I am not infinitely wealthy, I needed, if we wanted to continue to scale, I needed outside help. So we did a handful of friends and family rounds. We started off with just providing loan terms. So, anywhere from 8 to 12%, either amortizing or or interest only. That went very well. And I had a handful of those people, friends and family, that is, ask, hey, can we play along on the equity side as well? And I'm more than happy to share. We, because it allows us to grow faster, right? And so we started syndicating last year, and syndicated our first property last November, December. And so the whole process is interesting in that, it's a lot like dating, right? You have to create awareness. You have to see see that girl across the room, and you need to make eye contact and make her aware that you exist. And then you actually have to go up to her and introduce yourself, and hopefully at some point become friends, and then maybe more, and uh, build a level of trust, and ultimately get married, right? And so raising capital is nearly identical in that I need to create awareness around what we do and the value system upon which we operate. And then, as we create awareness, then my goal is to understand kind of where a person or a family is in terms of their journey, their financial journey. Where are they? Where are they trying to get? And then, my job as a problem solver, opportunity creator, is to, figure out if the projects that we have coming are a fit for, that person, entity, family, whatever, right? Some are, some aren't, and that's okay. And, over the course of time, we get to know each other, we date, right? But dating in this world is, social media posts and buying them a cup of coffee, or letting them buy me a cup of coffee, or catching up on a quick phone call, or, reading a piece of content that me or my team created, that, shows them that we actually know what we're doing. And then, over time, and that time can be days, weeks, months. In a lot of cases, it's months or years, and that's okay. You build a level of trust because you've served their needs, you've helped them, you've helped them clarify exactly where they are and where they want to go, and how they, what are the possibilities of helping them get there. And then at some point you earn, enough trust. You trust them and they trust you to the point where you earn the right to do business with them. And that's, when a deal tends to come together. So it's a process, and it's, there's no shortcut. It's just, human beings getting to know one another and figuring out if A, they can trust each other, and B, if they can work together. Right.
It's all about trust.
It is.
And at this point, what kind of methods or technique are you using that separate that from the dating life to raise the capital?
So a big piece of it is social media. We're very content driven. I want to, the content that we put out there is educational in nature. So, I want to help people. I want to help people invest in real estate, whether they choose to do it on their own, or they do it with us, or if they come to us and we're not a good fit. I also know a whole lot of other people that if there's a better fit, I'm more than happy to make introductions and connect them. So that's one thing. We have the podcast. So the Real Estate Underground, again, is educationally based. So, that my job on that podcast is to interview experts like you, and other folks who have been doing this for a while, and ask them some loaded questions so that they drop educationally gold nuggets along the way in terms of best practices and how they operate, and how they solve problems, and how they recognize and take advantage of opportunities. And then the last piece of it is we're starting to do webinars as well, and again, free. And it's looking at very specific things. How do you manage a property? How do you use your self-directed IRA to invest in real estate? What is the difference between passive and active real estate investing? How does the stock market track, relative to real estate opportunities? It's things like that. I'm looking to educate. And then as people, decide that, and all of that creates awareness. And when, I've created enough awareness and enough of a rapport either virtually or in real life, someone will raise their hand and say, "Hey, I'd like to learn more," and at which point, then happy to sit down, and that's the journey conversation. Okay, where are you in your process? Where are you trying to get, and what time frame? And okay, how can I help? How do you want me to help you? And here's how I think I can help you. And if there's a fit, great. And if there isn't, we keep talking. And if I find someone else or some other opportunity that's more in line with what they want to do, then I connect them.
And you mentioned something about social media. Beside podcast and webinar, what other platform are you using and how are they helping you?
Great question. So I find different channels, different social media platforms help in different ways, right? So when we were flipping houses and when we're renting to people, Instagram and Facebook are phenomenal, right? Because it's a visual medium, and they see like a before. This is what the apartment looked like when we bought it, and this is what the apartment looks like today, and it's at night and day difference. And so that engages folks that want to become our residents, or back in the day buy our the homes that we were selling. I find that LinkedIn and Twitter tend to be more business oriented. So I'm on there. I'm finding more opportunity around potential business partners, potential capital lending partners, and frankly investors. I'm also learning a ton. I find Twitter. Say what you want about Elon Musk. The fact is that I was never really a fan of Twitter until he took it over. And even the small changes that he's made so far has made that platform a lot more valuable to me, because I'm able to curate, the topics that I want to pay attention to, and get rid of the ones that I don't want to pay attention to, like politics and all that, right? So I can avoid the vitriol and still create relationships and learn.
At this point, we have Chat GPT and AI is taking over. And how are you utilizing that for your business?
Great question. So I am a huge fan of ChatGPT and another tool called Jasper. Um, and Jasper is something we use for marketing predominantly. So Jasper is something we use to write video scripts, write outlines, and ideas for content that may be coming out. We even have in some cases we'll have Jasper write the first draft, and then we'll go in and add the statistics and the stories that kind of make it real. So it's a good kind of first step. ChatGPT, I'm very wary about that, because it's funny. I was getting on a podcast, and I thought I was running late, and not this one, it was a different one, and I didn't know the person I was interviewing very well, so I got on my phone and told ChatGPT, hey, give me a quick biography on the person that I was interviewing, and I read it, and I knew of the person, so it wasn't like it was a brand new thing, and the ChatGPT bio was completely wrong. Thank God I didn't pay attention to it. So I use ChatGPT to do things like operationally, right? So we're a very systems oriented, process oriented company. And so we use ChatGPT to kind of start the process of, documenting all of the processes that we use and the job descriptions that we need to create, and checklists that we use, when we acquire a property or when we sell a property or when we're onboarding a resident or offboarding a resident, all those things. And so, while we had kind of basic checklist and flowcharts, we've used ChatGPT to really flesh out our business operation. And that's actually been really cool. And then I use Bard to do research. I find, because it's connected near real time to the internet, there's a better opportunity to use that to do research around, global trends. I use trends to kind of figure out where we want to be in the market. What size buildings we want to chase, geographies. What's hot, what's not, what's starting to slow down, and BART is one of the tools that we use to kind of pay attention to that. Again, trust but verify, but it tends to be a lot more accurate.
And are you using digital marketing to attract more tenants to your property?
Digital marketing to not no, actually, I can't say we are. We use social media, and we have. Well, I take that back. So we use social media to attract residents. The idea is that we're buying, one of, if not the ugliest building in the neighborhood, and our goal is to make it, very quickly the nicest building in the neighborhood, the best run for sure, and build a brand around that. So because I know that my next set of residents is going to come from within about a mile and a half of that existing building. So, we want to create a good brand within the neighborhood. So we use social media to kind of shine a light on that. That tends to get a wait list. And so we keep in touch with those folks on our wait lists, using email automation. And we don't use texting because of the do not call. I don't want to have to worry about that. But we definitely use email to keep in touch with those folks, so that when we have a unit that meets a description of what that person or family is looking for, then we can make sure that they know about it.
Nice, nice, nice. And as we know, in real estate, your team is everything.
Yes.
Can you tell us your experience for building a team, and what skills do you look at the people while building the team, while onboarding the person?
Yeah, great question. So I look for passion players, not payroll players and paycheck players. And what I mean by that is, I'm personally invested in the success of this business. I'm personally invested in the satisfaction and happiness of our residents. I'm personally invested in, the progress and opportunities we can create for investors. And I need my team to be the same way, right? It's my business, not their business. So I don't expect them to be, to do what I do, which is, work a ton of hours and travel all over the place and, do what I do. But I do expect that they, carry the flag, so to speak, in line with the values that we've put in place. And so, from a customer service perspective, I don't care if you live in a C- building or a B- or a B+ or an A+ building. You get the exact same treatment from our team. If something breaks, on a resident side, they get a phone call and it gets fixed. If they have a question, they get a return call and an answer. It's yes sir, no ma'am, thank you, my pleasure to serve you. We really want to make sure that they are respected, right? Because as far as the residents go, one of the key areas that helps us outperform our peers is the fact that residents tend to stay in our buildings a lot longer, usually more than 2x the average. And so part of that is the fact that we create a clean and safe environment. We create a property and a home for them that they can be proud to live in, and we manage it really well. And we take seriously our responsibility to our residents. So, when I'm hiring people, I need them to understand that, and that those things I just said are non-negotiable. And so I want to make sure that not only do they understand, but they embrace the fact that, that is our responsibility as folks. We kind of call it the Clark Street way. I've started to call it the Clark Street way, but the fact is that I need, the property managers, our handymen, our plumbers and electricians and HVAC folks, and the folks that mow the lawns and, clear the snow, and, pretty much anybody that a resident would touch in one way, shape, or form understands this is how we operate, right? And then likewise, on the investor relations side and the marketing side, it's the same thing, right? I'm not looking to shill our company. I'm looking to educate people And if they find that the education that we provide is useful, and also, hopefully that will help build credibility that we know what we're doing. And, over time, we earn the right to become friends and ultimately build trust. And then we earn the right to do business and work with them. And again, that team understands exactly, what our value system is. Culture is very important. If I learned anything in my corporate world, excuse me, it's that culture is really important in terms of the team you build and how and from what place they operate from, and so hiring the right people is a really critical part of that.
And as you know, like for work life or dating life or any kind of life, in every relationship, communication is the key. How do you promote effective communication in your among your peers in your team that everybody can speak and still bring their value on the table?
Another great question. So I don't believe in mistakes. I believe in lessons. And so, it's fine if someone tries something and it doesn't work, or makes a mistake and it doesn't work out. Just fix it. It's fine, but learn from it as well, right? And it's okay. We're all human. We're all gonna. I make 10 mistakes before lunchtime, and hopefully I can fix 2 or 3 of them in the afternoon, right? So if I'm not perfect, I certainly don't expect our team to be perfect. But what I do expect is accountability, and so that is a big piece of this. If you make a mistake, own it, right? That's okay, and let's learn from it and move forward. And it's that's a big piece. Um, I also think that the culture that you build around that, it's a learning culture, right? So not only are we holding ourselves accountable and owning, when things don't go exactly according to plan. But we're also learning from that, creating a new process so that it never happens again. And, hopefully using that to grow the business. Because, like I said earlier, I think every mistake, every failure, and I really dislike those words, but I view them as an opportunity to get better at what you do. I do.
Either it's a lesson or blessing. That's what I see.
Yeah. Right.
Before we wrap this up, I have like 3 more questions,
Sure. Fire
and
away.
just be ready for that. So, what morning routine do you follow as an entrepreneur?
So I am a big Elrod fan. And so, one of the things so I have a very active mind. Like, when I wake up in the morning, I'm one of those people that wakes up about 5 minutes before their alarm. And most of it is because I'm really excited to go do what I'm about to do. But um, the I need to uh, when my eyes open, my to-do list immediately starts cranking in my head, and so I need to clear that out. And so I'm a big proponent of meditation. So I meditate every morning for anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, just to kind of take a deep breath, yeah, and clear my head, right? Because I'm no good to anybody if I'm racing around, trying to do things without actually having a plan. Next step for me is I have dogs. I'm a dog person, so I will go feed them and then walk them, and get in a little bit of fresh air. I typically come back, and I don't do the savers thing that that Elrod um, pushes, but I do write quite a bit, and it's more around driving home for whatever reason. The way my brain works, if I say something like an affirmation, if I say something, it won't stick. But if I write it down, if I physically write it down in a notebook, it does stick. And so, that's my time to go over, goals, things that we want to accomplish. The night before, I always set up the big three, which is the 3 things I need to get done that day, the next day. So I'm reviewing that. And then, I would love to say I'm perfect and I don't touch my phone for the first hour of the day, but I do.
Perfect.
And so
We try.
occasionally I get sucked into the email vortex, but
Yeah.
I try really hard not to.
And that's a really great routine that you have. I try to follow that too, but sometimes it's just lacking sometimes. And if you
I
go,
should probably exercise more.
yeah,
I'd be looking a whole lot better, but that's okay.
yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
It's not a race.
And if you have to go back in time to start all over again, what would you do different?
Boy, I would start investing in real estate way earlier. So I was let's see, I was 41 when I bought my first property.
Oh, wow.
And if I knew what I know today as a 53-year-old, I would start when I was 22 or 18. And I would have held on to as many of those properties as I possibly could. And hopefully, that is exactly what I would do.
But I think it also depends on the information era we are living. And the 18-year-old kid wants to be rich. And when we were 18, we just want to have fun.
Yeah, I was not the person I am now. I was way more interested in fun.
Oh yeah.
Than, yeah.
I can tell that too. And the last question is: imagine today is your last day on this planet. What message do you want to give to the world?
That I love my girls.
Perfect.
My wife, my daughters, and my 3 dogs. They're all female. So I love my ladies.
Perfect. And so you are the minority in the house.
Very much so. Very much. Yes.
All right, Ed, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your information.
My pleasure.
And I'll see you another one. All right.
Okay. Looking forward to it.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on The Real Deal, a commercial real estate investing podcast, the show that covers everything to do with multifamily real estate investing to help you become an expert in your real estate ventures. We're here to help you create passive income and financial freedom so that you can achieve what you want whenever you want. We'll catch you next time on The Real Deal.